right. Hi, Lisa. How are you?
How are you?
Good, good. Surviving this heat, I guess, barely. Um,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, it's like 95 degrees out right now,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
is ridiculous.
yeah.
So we wanted to get on this little chat, and thanks everyone who's joining us for this recording. And Lisa and I, instead of making this like a super formal conversation, we are just like having a little coffee chat. So get comfy and get ready for some questions between the two of us, and you let us know what you think. Yeah, see, you got your hot coffee. I've got my iced coffee. I made
It's
a decaf latte for the experience.
yeah,
What do you have there?
good, good. I have green tea, and I shouldn't be having a hot tea right now, but I fast and I stopped eating 2 hours ago, so the only thing I can have is water and plain green tea.
And
So I'm like,
tea.
well,
Yeah,
so take
yeah.
something.
No, but that's
So
better than some alternatives because at least the caffeine won't really keep you up all night.
right,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's pretty easy peasy.
yeah.
Just have a little.
Um,
It's for the show.
yeah,
For the
we
show.
have to, right? It's part of
Yeah,
the this whole
exactly.
like coffee and connection thing that we're doing.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah, so a quick introduction for myself, and then I'll let you introduce yourself, Lisa. My name is Paige Ryan, and I am a physical therapist turned caregiver coach, and I am the owner and founder of Foundation First Physical Therapy. And what I do now is I still do offer physical therapy and equipment evaluations, but the big thing that has been like really exciting me, my passion project, has been a caregiver coaching program that I just recently developed. So I help to coach caregivers and so that they feel more empowered and ready to take on their caregiving journeys. So, yeah.
I love that. When I first met you and heard what you did, that's what was like. We just had this little aha moment of like, "Ooh, this is so good. This is so aligned. Our
Yeah,
work is aligned. Our
100%.
lives are together."
It really is.
Yeah.
And I'll let you talk a little. That's a good segue into talking a little bit about what you do in your inclusion work.
Yeah, no, great. I'm the founder of Merge, and the big title is Merge Diverse Abilities Inclusion Consulting. So, what does that mean? Always say I work with the rest of the world. So, I teach community organizations like rec programs, camps, churches, libraries, businesses, anyone who offers something for the general public. I teach them how to be more inclusive of our kiddos, our teens, our adults, our seniors, any ages. And I use the term diverse abilities. I can explain that later, but it really means that like any different type of disability, way somebody might participate, experience the world around them, how they show up, right? Just helping organizations to be more inclusive in their practices.
Mm-hmm. And I love what you do. And that's why I originally reached out when I discovered you online. And then I found out that you were sort of local to me, which was like even better.
I know.
So yeah, Lisa and I actually live in the same state, and we are,
Yes.
able to kind of have connections there. I was actually just chatting with someone yesterday who I was like, "Oh, you should get in touch with Lisa because you guys are aligned
Oh,
as
great.
well." So that's great.
That's great.
Yeah. So speaking of your inclusion work, what does inclusion mean to
Mm.
you? Because I really do think when we had our first conversation together, it was very much more eye opening to me, even though I've been in this world for a little while. Just the way that you go
Yeah.
about inclusion work is
Yeah.
so great and so valuable. So I'd love you to tell us what that means.
Yeah, no. Often when I'm answering that question, I kind of preface it what it's not, just to make sure we're on the same page, you
Yeah.
know? So it's not a program, and it is not an event or a day on the calendar or a staff member, because sometimes you may have noticed that, say, a rec program is like, oh, we have an inclusion staff. She takes care of these kids. So it's not a staff member, right? Now, it might be any of those or part of those, but it's everybody within our community or organization or business. It's everybody intentionally working so that we they're working every day to ensure everyone can meaningfully participate side by side with their peers,
Yeah.
right? So that's it. And I have a like an approach that I take, this little saying, and I say inclusion is in all, for all, by all. So what that means, it's in all settings. So if you are let's say a recreation programs, it means all settings. So programs you offer for your kids and also your seniors, volunteer opportunities, but also as employers, right? That you're thinking inclusively about the employees that you have, your staff, right? So it isn't just about your participants or people who sign up for a class. It's about your staff too. Are you thinking inclusively about that? So that's in all. And for all means that when I work with an organization, I teach that inclusion strategies are used for everybody, not, oh, you have a disability, come on over here, or you've got autism, we're going to go over the visual schedule, right? You use it for everybody because it benefits everybody, right? And nobody's ever been hurt by using a visual schedule, right? So you use it for all, and the last piece of that is by all. And that's where, when I work with an organization, I train everybody. So boots on the ground staff, part-time staff, full-time directors, executive directors, everybody has a role and responsibility. So that's kind of like how I approach inclusion when I'm talking, or working with or talking to a community organization.
Yeah, I think that's like so huge. That's that whole mentality of like what you just said about it benefits everyone. It benefits everyone, and everyone should be on the same page. And instead of like othering and being like, oh, that person takes care of that, or those people, it's
Yes. Yeah,
just
those people.
part of the like inner workings of whatever program it is, and that's great.
Yeah.
I
Yeah. And it's a shift, I mean, historically, and that's where we've made some gains, but I think we need to make a lot more. But historically, folks with disabilities have been separated and segregated, and they've been kept in, different houses and different communities in their own spaces by people who were, special, who worked with them. And it's like, when we started deinstitutionalization and started working towards having kids and teens side by side in school and all that we do, and adults too, that's the journey we're working on, and we still have a long way to go, but we're getting there.
I think it's so important, the work that you do, and that you're not only doing it here in our like local communities, but I know you're spreading the word across the country with different speaking engagements and all of that, and I think that's really great.
I've been very fortunate to
Yeah.
spread across the country, and even have a little bit of work in different other countries. So that's been a little exciting as well. So we'll see where
that's
that brings
amazing.
us.
And I'm curious, like you were saying, executive directors, et cetera, et cetera. Do you ever get pushback from people who are unsure about this being like the right thing for their program, and like how would you handle that?
Yeah, I do get that from time to time. It depends who's approaching me. I'm going to say a majority of the time I'm going to a conference, and somebody who's a program director, right? So they're like, yes, we need this, we want to do this, right? And they're all excited. But then they may get put from above, there's a misunderstanding. And they think, what do you mean? Didn't we hire that one person who does inclusion? What do you mean we have to have more training, right? That person does inclusion. So there may be either pushback because of, just not being educated, or fear, mostly unfounded fear, that I can work through with everybody. Cost too much, or, whatever their misinformation, or whatever their have from their experience. They've got reservations. I think, whenever we have that in a space from the community organization, I always start with just, so what's going on? So let's talk about what are your concerns about moving forward. But I want to leave this conversation making sure you understand what inclusion is and what it isn't.
Yeah, and even
right, because that's the most important piece.
Yeah, exactly. Even if it's not services with you, you're still doing the education, over and over and over again, and we can touch so many people if we do that. And hopefully that word spreads, and I think everyone could benefit from working with you, but at least you have the conversation regardless. I think that's super important. Yeah.
Yeah, and when it comes to the leaders, I try to remind them this isn't a check box item. Like, oh, Lisa's going to come in and do a training and we're done. It literally takes organizational commitment. So it's going to take a culture change, and depending on where they're coming from or where they're at on that continuum, the I call it the inclusion initiative. Where are they at? Are they just starting out, or have they been doing it for years but are hitting some hurdles, right? And no matter where they're at, I'm going to join them and at that place and help them to move forward.
Yeah.
But they have to understand it's a mindset and it's a culture shift. It's not well, just hire somebody to take care of those kids. Then you're missing the boat, and you're actually doing, in some cases, more harm than good.
Yeah.
Right? Because what does that tell the general community? You're at a YMCA and everybody says, oh, you have special needs, you go over there. And that's telling the whole community that they don't really belong in our classes. They have their own classes. And that's not the way we want to approach it. It's we make space for everybody in all places and spaces.
Yeah,
So.
and that's so important. I've been seeing like more and more pop up about, families can't find accessible solutions, so they don't go out. So then the people who are building the things or whatever, organizing, they say, oh, those people don't come. So then they don't build it. So then it's just like the cycle over and over again.
It's just a cycle.
Yeah.
It's
And that's like so sad. But I
Mm.
do think there's a little bit more awareness. Do you agree? Like you've been in the, you've been doing this a little bit longer than me. Do you agree that it's kind of like pushing towards that like direction?
Yes, 100%. I think that, well, in a good way, self-advocates have been able to speak up and say, this is what we want, or this is what we wanted. And then you got to credit, I guess, social media in that aspect, or giving spaces to people to talk and families to share and educate families as well, because sometimes families might feel like, oh, I'd rather them be in a specialized program, with their own type over here. And they may not even know that inclusion is an option or a benefit, or that, how that works. So yeah, there's some growth to come there.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is so true, that we need to give people who are living the experiences more opportunities for their voices to be heard. And I hope that like we're as a society, that communication and like you said, social media and access to the world at our fingertips is improving. I hope that also like is carrying over so that there's a diverse group of people who we hear their voices, not just one type of person.
Absolutely right. Exactly. And the story. If one person with autism, one person with autism, but then 25, 50, 100 other different diagnoses, disabilities, differences, that could be occurring as well. So that's the point. Inclusion is just opening up to meeting people wherever they're at, right? And I do think organizations or our communities are doing much better. I've seen great, even when I started this, or I think about that, and it has been some really good movement. I think we're going to take a little hard hit, and we took a little hard hit during COVID. That pushed us back, and I think just like the political climate and the funding being questioned and programs being limited is going to take another hit. But here's what I've been saying to my audiences. That's reason why we need to work harder to be more inclusive, because inclusion should be done by the community, not a program or extra funding or this or that. So in a way, maybe it's going to make our community step up a little bit more, because I know that they know now that there is a benefit to being more inclusive. So once they've figured that out, then they want to do that because they see somebody succeed, or they realize that over time it's actually fiscally beneficial to be more inclusive in your practices for many reasons, but we're definitely lots of movement and strides in the right direction, but we're gonna feel a little bit of a pushback, I think. Just what I'm feeling.
Unfortunately. And I know like what you're saying is that it takes a lot of change and like a systemic organizational change to really achieve what we're trying to do. But is there like, do you have any examples of like a small thing that has made a difference for an organization or community, or something we could do?
Yeah, that's a great question. When I think about, I have 6 principles of inclusion, and one of them, if I could just leave you with like one
Mm-hmm.
thing to think about, that it's and I see the aha moments when I spell this one out, and it's called, it's the right mindset. How do we get to yes? And when you're a community organization, an employer, a business, and you're presented with any challenge around disability inclusion, right? It could be, oh, you're going to have so and so in your group, or we have to change how this is run now. Mostly human nature is like, I can't do that. Here's all the reasons why this isn't going to work. And that's human nature for us to, I'm not I can't do this. So what I tell people is just take that deep breath and pause a second before you respond and try saying this first. Okay, how are we going to make that work? Isn't that just the simplest way? Instead of, here's why it's not going to work, we say, how can we make that work? And just that little change in the way we approach something, that's going to open you up to now working with others. Instead of like defending, here's why it's not going to work, you're focusing on what can we do. And if you always approach something with that, and I find like it's like this tiny little mindset shift occurs, people are in a much better space. But recently I've just had a lot more focus on this. One simple thing you can do: normalize the process for asking for accommodations, or requesting, or not asking for, just stating. It shouldn't even be asking for, stating accommodations that are needed, because often it's an afterthought and somebody has to come and then they have to like beg for the accommodation. But whether you're applying for a job, or you want to go to camp, or you want to join a choir or a team, it should just be part of the process. We should not make people jump through hoops. It should just, anybody, whether they have a disability, don't look like they have a disability, don't, it doesn't matter. Just say, what accommodations do you need? What do you need to help for you to be successful in this job, in this group, in this club, in this activity? I think that is so simple. Like, to do, we can do that, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Just
that's like,
again, it's
it doesn't take that much effort, so that's like a really great little thing, and that honestly I hadn't even thought of until you said it, because it should be part of everything.
everything for everyone, not just, do you look like you have a disability?
Yeah.
Because we know 70% of disabilities are hidden. So,
Yeah, and
we don't want to get into that otherism, like you look like, or you utilize a wheelchair, or you have Down syndrome over here, right?
Yeah.
No, it just,
Here's
if
the
we think
special
about it,
application. Like, no, it should all just be
yeah, it's just all
included.
part, exactly. It's not a separate application. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
exactly.
that's
Good
really
question.
interesting. And anyone who's listening, I bet you know somebody who runs a program,
Mm-hmm.
or hires people, or whatever it might be. Maybe that's like a simple thing we can teach everybody.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You never know if I think, if I'm hiring folks, if somebody asks that up front, you're going to get more honesty. You're going to get, and I don't really care for like, we want to avoid non-disclosure. But we want somebody. Here's the point: we want somebody to be comfortable
Yeah,
to share.
for sure.
They shouldn't have to be fearful that if I ask for this, am I going to get the job? Or are they going to let me come to my kid come to camp? Right? We don't want to put them in that position. We want to know up front, because that's being inclusive. We want to figure out, how can we make this work for everybody?
Yeah, 100%. I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more. Okay, so let's think. Did you have anything else that you wanted to tell everybody before I had like my last question for you?
Yeah. I
About your
think
program or anything, your consulting.
yeah, no, I always like to share, because it helps people to see me as, like, hey, I'm here working alongside, we're working together. Maybe tell a little bit about my why, or
Yeah.
my background. And I think I started working in the field when I was only 17, right? So 17, 18 years old. So I'm, well into my 40 plus years of doing this. But it was so natural for me. That's why I originally started working in the field. And I grew up we had a family friend who had a daughter who had intellectual developmental disabilities. And it just was like nothing. Maybe it was the way my parents introduced us to her, that it was like, this is Donna, this is our friend's daughter.
Yeah.
It wasn't a big deal,
Yeah.
right? And I think that really helped me to see that, yeah, she was just like all the other, like we call them our cousins, right? So that's how I started working in the field. Really young. I got it. I always got it, and I was always thinking ahead. I always thought about, what do we need to do in this world? Even when I was like 18, 19 years old, I was always thinking way, way ahead. And now, my work, I think why I do it now, or why I started Merge, and what fuels me. And I mean all family members, but I'm just going to say, because I just think, being honest here, parents, or my mama bears, that's what I call my mama bears, because they are, they're honest with me, they talk to me, they share with me, and they fuel me. Because when I hear that all the struggles and the challenges that moms, dads, parents, grandparents, anybody, right, whoever is the family member supporting someone, what they have to go through, I just want to fight harder, and help create a better world for them. And, I don't, personally, I do not identify as having a disability. My children have experienced different things in their lives, that I have had to kind of be a little bit, both of them were somewhat temporary, but I had to be that mama bear. So I was in that seat for a little while, but I'll never forget it. I'll never ever forget that, when I was helping my kids through their medical and other challenges, mental health challenges. I'll never forget how hard that was, and we need to change things, right, to make the world better for everybody to feel like they're meaningfully belong.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting, like, kind of segue into what I do, and how
Mm.
I got into what I'm doing, because I really do think that, I myself also do not identify as someone who has a disability, and I'm going to talk about my daughter. She does not have a disability, but my mindset did change when I became a mom. And I began to feel like I could relate a little bit more to moms and their experience with how I was as a physical therapist. And
Yeah.
that was really when I began to be like, okay, maybe what I'm doing isn't it for me, isn't the like end game for me. I've always been super passionate about working with kids with disabilities, and I've been a PT for 10 years, and I love being a PT, but I felt like there was something pulling me to do more, and that's like why I kind of started making my program, building it out, and then I realized it was like something that I really think people could learn from, people could get something out of, and it was something that doesn't really exist too much out in the world. So I think what we have in common there, the common thread, is that we just want to help. And like you said, the mama bears, that's kind of like the people that I'm trying to help too.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny you said, when you became a parent, because I remember when I became a parent. Now, I had worked direct support in a residential community in Pembroke, right? It's called New England Village. And I had done that for years and years, with direct support advocate, that was my role. And, there were, sometimes there were parents of these adults who lived there, and sometimes some of them were, they would want things a certain way or whatnot, and often I recognized when other staff would get frustrated with that and be like, she's so bossy, what is she getting into? She doesn't know how hard her job is, and I would really get taken back by that. And maybe I didn't stand up. I was still like 20 years old, or 21, as much as I could. But when I became a parent, right, and the first time that maybe my daughter had a sleepover, went and stayed somewhere, and I was that one, like, make sure her hair's done nice, and make sure she has matching ribbons or whatever, like, and then it like dawned on me, that's all the other parents in in New England Village wanted.
Yeah.
Yes, they wanted their son's fingernails clipped because he can't clip them himself, and or make sure they're neat or clean or whatnot, because often they may not be able to do that on their own. So I really grew a large respect, huge respect for families and their perspective, and to really see them as, first of all, they are the person who knows this person best, and whether they are 5 years old or 25 or 50, they're still the parent of that, or a family member, depending on the situation, of that person, and they should be speaking up. That's kind of that. That's what we do as parents. I still do it for my kids. I advocate for my kids, and they're in their 30s.
Yep.
But that's funny you said that when you said like that when you became a parent, because I remember that aha moment, and it made me even a stronger advocate.
It's been huge for me. Just looking at things like through a different lens, and just knowing like everything that goes on outside of like the little bit of time that I was spending with parents in their therapy sessions or in an IEP or whatever it was. There's like this whole life outside of that. And I think often when I was like in my career, I was just like so micro focused on like what I was doing, and I'm trying to help, obviously, but not seeing the whole picture at all.
Right, really do. Then that's part of that's how we build collaboration and partnership, and that's how we build a better community, is by listening. Just listen to the family members, right? Because I've heard even the same type of stuff out of Rick, and like, why are camp professionals like like a negative comment about a family member because they're expecting too much or whatnot. It's like, no, listen to them. Like,
and like you said, think about how can we make that happen, instead of being like, they're demanding and we can't do that.
They're your command, we can't do that. Like, they're so unrealistic, they have no idea how hard we work, right? Well, then work together and you can figure it out. That's the way I always approach that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was a great question you asked, but thanks. I just jumped off on that, but I'd love to switch unless you had any other questions, I'd love to kind of volley it back to you.
No, go ahead. Grill me.
Yeah. I'm just kind of learning a little bit more about your work and your perspective. What's one thing you wish more professionals knew about home life for families of kids with disabilities? I mean, that kind of great.
Yeah, such a good segue into that question. I think it's really important that we as professionals know that everything that you ask of a family is, even if you just think it's one thing, to them it is one more thing. So there's just so much on their plates already. So a lot of like what I try to do when I'm like working with families right now is like, what is it? I was actually just going through mindfulness exercises, trying to fit mindfulness into someone who's super busy today. And I said, like, what's something that you do every day that takes like 30 seconds to a minute? And they're sitting there thinking, and I'm like, what about washing your hands or brushing your teeth or whatever it might be? Can you stack something on that? It's already a habit, and then try to do it more. So that's just an example of like self-care, but it applies to everything. If I, as a therapist, would say, do this exercise twice a day, 5 days a week, and how can we expect those things to happen when we're all in our separate little worlds, not seeing the whole picture? So your one thing is just one more thing.
It's one more. I like that. I love that. It's one more thing for that person.
Yeah.
No, that's a great point. Yeah. So you've been how long have you been doing the coaching program? When did that start?
It's in its infancy right now. So I've officially been working for myself for like 2 months. But my program started I started building it out in January. My first cohort of parents started in mid-July. So just getting started.
So since starting, because I remember when I started, there were some like big aha moments, or like, whoa, wow, I didn't realize that. So since starting your program, what surprised you the most?
There's a lot surrounding families, but I think the biggest thing that comes to mind, just like I feel like been at the forefront of my mind recently, is how collaborative and welcoming the community is on a whole. I was so fearful of going into conversations and being people thinking that I was a competitor and not wanting to talk to me or whatever it might be. And I really find that every single person that I've talked to wants to help me to succeed because we see the value in each other and we all just want to help others, whatever part of the world we're in. And that's been amazing. Like even just the connection with you, this conversation, our conversations in the past and then leading to this is just like so valuable to me as a like startup business owner. And that's like been my biggest takeaway is there's just like this awesome, strong community, truly a community of people who are all trying to, work towards similar goals. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
And in the same mindset, when we're all working together, we're going to improve our communities together, right? There's so much work to be done. There's so much. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you reached out, and I'm glad we're here. And thanks for sharing that. That I'm sure that was a big kind of positive aha
Yeah, a
moment,
good
right?
one.
Yeah. So thinking, a little bit going to your physical therapy work, or let me ask you this: what's your favorite? And I'm really curious about this for another reason. Adaptive play idea that actually works in a busy household, right? So what can you do, right? What is something that you could share there?
Yeah. So I have a couple of things come right to mind. So like right now, one thing that's huge is like being outside with your family, right? We're in the middle of summer here and it's the time in New England where we actually get to be outside. And something kind of like struck me. I was at my sister-in-law's house and she was switching out the swings on her swing set. And I thought to myself, that's so cool. And I said, where did you get that? And she said, oh, this was free on Facebook Marketplace. And the swing that she was using was actually something that could be used for like diverse abilities. It was one of those like saucer swings. And I thought to myself, what a great idea. Like, something might be built where it's not accessible or adaptable, but there's so many ways that you can, take things, and my favorite things that are adaptive are actually not labeled adaptive because then they don't come with a big markup of adaptive equipment. So finding things that are like considered mainstream that you can use.
That's how it should be though, right?
Yeah, exactly. So like a saucer swing switch out for a swing that otherwise wouldn't be used. That's like a quick little switch.
Yeah.
And it was free on Facebook Marketplace, which I love too.
I think it's such a simple idea. And that's how that's what inclusion is about. You have things that work for everybody, but they're going to specifically really help certain kiddos, right? So, yeah, that's a win-win. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
I love that. And you're, going back to thinking about easy ways for your families to integrate this into their lives because that it's one more thing for them to do, but if it's just like, hey, you already got the saucer swing here, you're good to go, right? And I'm sure as you're building stronger relationships with your families, just some advice you might be able to share. How do you build connection with the family that's maybe, I'm sure you have a lot of families that come to you that are overwhelmed or maybe even hesitant, just not sure. What's your tricks? What are some of your strategies about connection?
That is huge, right? Because like you said, like we want to not be the one more thing, right? And I think a big hesitation that a lot of people have is like, okay, I'm already overwhelmed. Why would I add something else to my plate, So we'll talk a little bit about that and then in like the program sense, but then I'll talk a little bit about how I kind of connect with these families as well. So in my program, it's really the way I thought it out is it's 6 months. And by the end of 6 months, I want to be out of a job. I want you to be able to run with it and feel like it's sustainable and actionable and something that you can fit in your day-to-day life. Not that, Paige came in and she threw a bunch of checklists and all these new things at me,
Yeah.
and I see the value in them, but I just can't do it. So that answers that side of the hesitation there. But
Yeah.
one of the
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
about like connecting with people and families who
Mm.
might be hesitant about even just me and the way that I work is like I just I just love to go in and meet people exactly where they're at. And like you
Yeah.
said, like just listening can be huge. People are overwhelmed
Mm-hmm.
and often, going through these really tough things with diagnoses or whatever it might be. And
Everything.
just being there to really listen and hear them. And, hopefully I'm the person who can help. But if I'm not, there's somebody else out there who can, and I would help them find that person. And that's,
Right.
I think that's
Right.
huge. That none of us are just in it for themselves. I think that's a huge way to
Absolutely.
like build trust and
Absolutely.
connection with people, is that like,
Yeah.
we truly just want what's best for the people who come to us asking for help.
Right,
So
right. And I think that whole theme of, making it easily integrated into their lives and not an extra thing to do, because in a way, that's how I present inclusion. It's not this big, scary, we have to do all this other stuff. Nope, we're just going to tweak how you do
what you
something,
already are doing, yeah.
change how you say something. What do you do? And I just explain it in that way. And then once they're practicing it, it just becomes the way that they practice. It's just a different way. It's not additional, it's just different, right? So I think it's the same thing we would want to do with families, right? Is to try, not like, here, you got to do these 5 other things, but how can you add this into, or just tweak something you're already doing your family time, and, kind of do kill 2 birds
I
with
try
one
to do
stone or
that for
something.
myself too. Like,
Yeah.
if I can get
Hello.
something done, 2 things done at once, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, right, absolutely. Which leads me to the next question. So, if you were talking to caregivers,
Yep.
right, what's one thing they can do to feel more grounded, right?
I feel
So
like
what do
I
you got
kind of
there?
alluded a little bit to
So, yeah.
these types of things. So, like I said, choose a time during the day that you're already doing something. So, one example is, okay, you're washing your hands. Can you take
Mm-hmm,
3
mm-hmm.
really deep, mindful breaths while you're doing that?
Yeah.
Can
Yeah.
you really focus on the way the breathing feels and where that air is going in and out, and really bring yourself back to like your body?
Yeah.
And in that, I tend to hold a lot of my tension in my shoulders. So I always say, don't wear your shoulders as your earrings. So in that, like while you're taking
I
your deep
love
breath,
that.
maybe you focus on one part of your body that you're going to relax, somewhere that you've found is your like stress or your pain point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's just a
Yeah.
little thing, but it could be added into
Those things,
anybody's day. Yeah.
all those little things,
Yeah.
that we have to, take that time to
Hmm.
do. Yeah, good reminders. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, I learned so much. Thank you for sharing
You're
all those. That's
welcome.
great.
You're welcome. Oh, so that
Yeah.
kind of like segues into like our next little bit. I mean, we can just kind of open discussion here, Lisa, but one of the things that I
Yeah.
wanted to ask, and that we should discuss together, is we've talked a lot about, sometimes what we do is heavy. It can be emotionally heavy, and there's a lot that like,
Mhm.
goes into it. So how do you keep yourself
Yeah.
grounded, or do you have any advice to
Yeah.
anybody, like me, who maybe needs that?
Yeah, absolutely. And it can. And there's times where my travel schedule, my schedule, just keeping up, and the heaviness of the work, like taking on, like I said, if a parent wanted to chat with me, or staff from a camp wants to talk to me, and I hear, all the struggles they're going through, I hold
Yeah.
that for a bit. But then I get into problem solving,
Yeah.
But here's what I've learned how to balance this, because when you work for yourself, and I'm a hard worker. I'm not taking the easy road here. I'm always working on something, but I have to schedule in, right? And give myself that space to do things that I like. Now, I like to work out, so I make sure that even when I'm on the road, I give myself time. I schedule in. It's on my calendar, right? Workout, I've got a bike ride here, I got to walk here, I'm going, to take a class, a boot camp class, whatever that is. Just just going out in nature, right? Those are things I love to do. And my advice is schedule it in.
Yeah.
Don't make it like, oh, if I have time, because and I try not to interrupt that either. I mean, it's happening at 6 o'clock in the morning, so I'm not missing it. But still, especially when I'm traveling, because that's when I'm,
That's
just
so draining. Yeah.
nonstop.
Depleted.
It's so nonstop. Yeah, no, it is. And also, I listen to audiobooks because you always want to be learning and growing. And people have asked me, like, oh, what do you read? What do you read to keep yourself, up to date? And I alternate books. I'm not going to read everything about my field,
Yeah.
because then that's work again, but I also, I'm trying to find that balance of keeping myself educated on what is happening in our world and politically and all that, and how I can help to advocate for a better world and country for us right now, particularly, groups who are, under attack right now. So I do a lot of listening there, reading, audio listening to, like, I love Heather Cox Richardson every day. Like, I try to listen to understand, and I'm trying to understand history too. So I read a lot about history, like how is this happening, right? Why is that happening? Because that helps me in a weird way feel grounded, like I'm still doing something, because you can get, like I said, I could just work 24/7 and not really, like, I have to contribute to my society in other ways too that is going to help our communities. But
it's funny. I do the same thing. My audiobooks that I usually listen to, like when I'm driving and whatnot, those are all like things that I think would better my profession, all of those types of things, similar to what you're saying, like the field, the pushing us in the right direction. That's what I use that for. But my way to stay grounded, one of my ways to stay grounded is actually reading, and those books are just for me.
Like a murder mystery, or whatever,
like
anything.
thrillers, stuff like that, and that's like one of my big things. And like you, I never skip it. It's like something that I have to have in my day to kind of unwind. And but what you're saying about like really blocking out the time, it's huge when you begin to work for yourself. I literally feel like I want to, and I could work around the clock.
I know. And there's times I'm like 9 o'clock at night, and I'm like, I gotta cut it.
Exactly.
Cut, like done. But
so you have to,
but then
have to block it in.
Exactly. But today, I'll tell you a little secret. I woke up early because I had a project that I half finished last night, and I just wanted to finish it this morning. So I woke up at 6, and I just started pounding out, get all this stuff done. But then, and I had a meeting, and then at 12, I went to the beach. I was just like, I just went to the beach, and I just enjoyed, and it was only like 1 hour, but I just sat there, and all I did was watch the waves. Yeah. That's it. I didn't do anything. I didn't, I just watched the waves for an hour, and then I came back.
Now, do you live near the beach?
So close enough. It's about 20 minutes.
I'm
in Pembroke, so it's like Duxbury Beach or Marshfield. It's close enough. So I like to get that time in, but I scheduled it last night. I'm like, I'm scheduling some beach time.
I love it.
But that meant
you
I had to get up earlier.
I was on vacation last week with my family and like getting some of that R&R. So you just have to. I mean, I think everybody has to. That's one of my biggest things that I preach to others is like taking care of yourself and making time for yourself. And if I don't do it myself, then what am I trying to say?
Exactly. And you got to give like grace, and you got to give yourself that grace to be like, yes, I can. That was the hardest thing when I started working for myself, because I had always been a hard worker, and, I was the person, who didn't work 40 hours a week. I was like 50, 60, even though whatever. It was like, but I was always working for somebody else doing that. And then I had to find that balance, because you could just go bananas and work constantly, but carve out the time, whether it's, like I go to Ireland every year for, it was 2 weeks, right? So I do that in July after I do all my camp staff trainings, right? I do all those trainings, and it's back to back to back to back to back for like, sometimes it could be up to 6 weeks of just craziness. Then I go away. And I recharge, and I just unplug, go away.
Yeah.
And then I come back, and I'm ready.
You can't you can't pour from an empty cup. You have to fill your cup too.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean
exactly.
that kind
So,
of segues into what you were saying about, like, you worked a lot when you were first starting out in this, and you have to, block out time. Do you have any other advice that you'd give your past self starting out in this space? Maybe not even, I mean, it could be recent past, like in your actual
yeah, yeah,
consulting, or maybe past self. You said you've
yeah,
been working with people with disabilities since you were 17 years old. So yeah. What would you give? What
yeah,
kind of
yeah.
advice do you have for
I,
younger Lisa?
Well, I think I'm really pleased with my journey, and I'm kind of, and as I watched it unfold, and when I started Merge, I found this is what I was meant to do in my
Yeah.
life, and it felt it's an amazing. I know, I'm very privileged because not a lot of people get to find that
Yeah.
thing. That this is every little thing since I was, 17, and even before that has led to this. And I feel like,
So cool.
it's very special. It's a special journey, and I have this unique background, and I've been able to pull it together, use all my best talents and strategies, and love what I do every single day. So that's great. But I'm going to echo what you said. When I first started out, and it's not advice, it's just a great, kind of experience. And don't be afraid of this. If anybody is thinking of starting their own business or starting a journey of their own, how much I got from colleagues was like amazing. How people helped out, and whether it was official, like, I went through SCORE because they help small businesses, or just other people that I met along the way. And can I sit and talk to you, because I don't know what I'm doing. I know what I want to do, I don't know how to do it. And people were so generous, and that helped me to be a generous, because this is the way I look at it. Like, if we can all help each other, it's going to be a better world. And I'm particularly like a little bit more, you know, happy to help another woman out, because I think women have a harder work to do. Especially in my field, professional speakers and trainers. Like, you know, it's kind of a boys' game sometimes. So you got to, like, I want to help other women. I want to help anybody, but I definitely want to help other women. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. And I just think I've really, my journey has been incredible, and the camp and rec people that I meet. They're just my kind of peeps,
Yeah.
They're like outdoorsy and love it, and they naturally and my whole journey's been great. I literally wouldn't change a thing about it, I don't think,
That's awesome.
if anything, I would have started Merge earlier, but it happened for the right reason at the right
Yeah.
time. But, it's been an incredible journey. But what about you? What would
Yeah.
what advice would you give yourself and all your journeys?
Yeah. So I think this applies to, like, literally every part of my life. But I think, like, just
Mhm.
telling myself to not be afraid of showing up imperfectly. Not everything's going to be perfect, and, like, sometimes showing up imperfectly is the most authentic, engaging, like, thing that people can, like, actually grasp onto. That,
Love
you're
it.
also a human,
Love it.
and, you know,
Yeah.
we all are. Yeah, just not being afraid to show up imperfect, because imperfect action and, like, starting something is better than just
Women.
sitting around waiting for perfection to come
Yeah,
around.
absolutely. Yes, and we don't all know all the answers, right? Like, that was one of my concerns when I first started, and I did conference sessions, and I'm in front of a group of, like, it could be 60 people, it could be 150, 200, and at first I started like, what if I don't know the answer to something that they
Mm-hmm.
ask? Well, you just say, I'll get back to you on
Yeah,
that, right? Like, we're not perfect. It's
nobody
the same
is.
thing. We're not perfect. I don't know everything, and I will be the first one. And I did it last week. I was in a training, and somebody came up with an idea, and it was one of my little questions that I asked the audience. And usually I hear the same things over and over, and that's great. It's confirming, affirming. And then a woman came up with a total. I'm like, hold on. I'm writing this one down. And I'm like, that is a great idea. I never heard of that. And I wanted to make her feel like, Ooh, like I go, I've been doing this training for a long
Yeah.
time, and congratulations, you just got me a new
You
nugget that I'm
still
going to
learn
put on my
something
little
new
note.
every day, right?
Every day, and that's what we have to learn from other people too,
Yeah.
because we're not perfect. I love that you see that as something that you would
Yeah, and I
um,
think it goes a long
bring.
way to like building trust with people too, and that you're
Yeah,
like you're ready to admit if you don't know the answer or if you have to find the
yeah,
answer or maybe you're not the right person to deal with the answer. And I think that goes like a
yeah,
really
yeah,
long way to building trust
yeah,
and people
yeah,
like really seeing you as just like a human being who wants to help. And that was one of my
yeah,
questions. So I think
yeah.
we kind of answered it, but I don't know if you have anything to add to like what's something that you do or that you've seen done that helps make a big difference in like building trust with families or organizations or whatever?
Yeah, yeah. We've said this a couple times, and I'm just going to repeat it again because listening.
Yeah.
We got two ears, one mouth, two ears,
Yeah.
right? Listening, but inviting. It's a simple. There's two words: inviting and welcoming. Right, and we have to think about that in any kind of collaboration, and where you're working together and you're trying to build trust. To invite them in and welcome them to be part of the conversation, the collaboration, working together, right? And I think our language and our messaging, and I work a lot with camps to like look at what does your brochure say? Is it welcoming? Are you saying through your language that the parent who has a child who has autism or physical disability or Down syndrome, right, that they are welcome there? Are you explicitly saying that, right? Do you have photos of kids with and without disabilities playing
Yeah.
together? Or do all your kids in your photos of your camp, or adults if it's for adult programs, are they just people who appear not to have disabilities? Because representation matters. That's that. And there's kind of a new quote that I'm sharing in all my trainings: be a learner, not a judger. Right? That's what we want to do. We want to learn. So welcome, and that invite and that welcome is going to help start building trust, because you're saying, what family member, your perspective is important. It's actually, somebody told me this years ago, you are part of their team. Like if you say, oh, we're building a team to work together. No, actually, you're joining their team. So think about that. And I just really like that the family, right, is the team, and they have their own. So if they have a child who has a disability, and they might have their own PT, they might have their own therapist, they might already have a ABA, they might already have, right, parents, grandparents, they already have their team. You're joining their team. Not, we're going to make this team that's going to help this
Yeah.
kiddo, right? No, you're joining their team. So look at it that
Yeah.
way, because they're the knowledge base. They know their kiddos best. So that's, the one way that I, kind of help others, my people that I train, to understand that.
Yeah.
But what do you think? What do you do to
Oh my
really start to
goodness.
build that trust with family?
Trying to think of if there's one specific thing. I think you like really hit the nail on the head with that last thing that you said. Just yeah, being part of their team. That's like so huge. I'm like still just like that
Yeah,
is part of that mindset shift that I had when I became a mom and had my own family,
yeah, yeah,
and just hearing it come out of your mouth is just resonates so strongly. Just yeah, just I think building trust for me is um, just following through on all the
yeah.
little things.
Good point. Following through. If you say you're going to do something, do
Yeah,
it,
like
right?
it could be as
Yeah,
simple as, oh, I know that resource. I'll send you that link tonight, and it is there tonight.
yeah, yeah,
All those
yeah.
little
Yeah,
things,
I agree. That's good.
and just the fact that like I'm happy to help. Whether you choose to work with me or not.
Yeah,
Whether you choose to be part of what I'm doing or not, I'm gonna. If you have a
yeah,
question, I'm here. So that's kind
yeah,
of my
yeah.
my
I
big
love
thing.
that.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Anything
Good
else that you
conversation.
had on the top
Excellent.
of your mind?
Goodness, no, I
I
think we
know we
covered a
kind of
lot.
we
And
could chat about
I
this kind
love
of
that.
stuff forever. I think we found that in our first conversation too.
I always tell people, like, how much, I ask them, how much time do I have? And they're like, well, whatever. I go, don't tell me
Yeah.
that, because I will talk forever. I'll be
I
here
need a
till
cap.
tomorrow night talking about inclusion. Like, tell me when I need to stop, like, and I will stop, because
Yeah,
that's
for
where,
sure.
we want to be mindful of people's time as well, so yeah, that's
Yeah.
funny. But no, I think
But
we
my
covered so
question,
much. I mean, this was a great
yeah,
conversation.
my question for you,
Mhm.
Lisa, is what should people do if they want to work with you or they want to refer somebody to work with you? How do they get in touch with you? What's the
Yeah.
best way?
Oh, I'd love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And, I would welcome them whatever mean way works best
Yeah.
for them. They can call me. Do you want me to go over everything
We
here? We're
we can
gonna be
just
able to add
we can
anything
put
to
it in the
this?
description or whatever, but
Yeah, yeah. So call
yep,
me, and then my email is I check constantly,
great.
so I'm really good at that. I've got like you said, if somebody sends me something and I say I'll get back to you, I do get back to you. So Lisa Drennan at mergeconsulting.org, but also go on my website mergeconsulting.org, and from there, I think one of the best little kind of connections you can get there is access to my link tree, right? And I'll send it to you as well. And on my link tree, you're going to find
Yep.
resources. Every month I put up new,
You have
like
great
top 10 tips for
resources.
this. Yeah, I know. I love my resources. I got resources. I've got
Your
podcasts like this,
Instagram is a good
conversation,
like one.
article,
You're
my
always posting stuff
Instagram,
there.
all of
Yeah,
it. I'm always posting, probably more than I should, but I like it. I love doing
it's
it.
fun.
And I know people appreciate it because it's
Yes.
an idea. And I tell my camps all the time, or my camp staff, at every Monday, have an inclusion tip of the week, right? And if you're not sure where to find it, go on steal my Instagram stuff. I don't care. Use that.
Mhm.
Talk about that quote. Like, that's why I want it to be there so people can have conversations about it. But yeah, go to my link tree. There's articles that I've written, for National Magazine. And you can just see if I have any. Most of my trainings I do for organizations, but every once in a while one is open to the
Great.
public, and you would, be able to see something like that. Yeah, so that'll all be on my link tree. Just get on there through my mergeconsulting.org.
Perfect.
Yeah, I would love it. So I
Yeah.
challenge everybody who's watching this. Who do you know? What organization could benefit from inclusion training, consulting, and just resources that can help them to increase their capacity to be more inclusive in
Yeah,
their
exactly.
nature?
That's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And same with
Absolutely.
me. I mean, so for me that I have all the same stuff. If you go to my website, foundationfirstpt.com, it's the same. My Instagram is the same, Foundation First PT. I'm
Mm-hmm.
similar to Lisa. Obviously, I'm newer in the game, but I do really enjoy putting out information, tips, tricks, whatever it is. So my Instagram's a good place for that. And my, call to action to you is if something that we said resonated, I'd love to talk to you. And on my website and my Instagram, there's a link to book a call with me. The first call is a discovery call, and it's always free. And it doesn't have to be that we're going to end up working together. Maybe you have a question, or maybe you just want to chat about something that kind of sprung your interest here, and I'm always happy to
Yeah.
have that conversation. So that's mine.
Yeah. I love
Yeah,
it. I love it. And let's keep the conversation going. We'll wait till the summer's over. Maybe we'll do a fall or winter
I
chat
would
and
love that.
see how school's going, things like that. But if anybody here is watching and you want us to talk about a certain
Yeah.
topic, let's do it again.
Yeah,
I love it.
absolutely. I would love that. I mean, I think the whole point of this, right, and is that like we are creating connection between you and I, but also everyone else who's hopefully listening, and
Yeah.
learning about these things that are so near and dear to our hearts, and hopefully we can create change and systemic change, and kind of help people one person at a time. But
Yeah.
if you do it one person at a
Mhm.
time, you can create a whole tide of change. So yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
That's
Well,
it.
thanks,
That's
Lisa.
it.
I hope you have a good
Great thing
rest
to
of your
end.
night.
Thank you, you too.
Bye.
It's great
Yeah.
chatting. All right.